Hi, I'm Dave Bishop, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. It's August 3rd, 2020. I'm John Swinimer. You have a comment, criticism, or question, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Dave Bishop. The podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Dave is a Pickering, Ontario illustrator who takes great joy in self-publishing comic books. His publishing history includes art duties on True Patriot Presents Crude, written by Fred Kennedy for Chapter House, and Mort, written by Kevin Joseph and published by Source Point Press. He's also the artist on the Amazing Hockey Stories series, written by Lorna S. Nicholson and published by Scholastic Canada. This series covers the stories of Connor McDavid, Haley Wickenheiser, P.K. Subban, and in the very near future, Mitch Marner. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Dave Bishop. Dave Bishop, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you for having me. It's good to speak to you again.
Yeah, we've chatted many times, but you know what? I've never asked you this question. What was the first comic book that you read?
I don't know if it's the first comic book I ever read, but the first one that had a big impact on me, I was really young. We were still living in Montreal at the time, so I was younger than 9. But I went to the Dépanneur, like the corner store, and in the spinner rack there was this comic, and on the front it had this like giant metal dude, and he was being crushed between these spiked walls, and there's another guy in a yellow costume that was just sort of chilling out there. There's all these characters on the book, and I begged my parents to have it, and they got it for me. I think it was like 25 cents or whatever. I just read it till it fell apart. And that was X-Men 122.
Ah, okay, there you go. Yeah, that's a good one for sure. Yeah. So it was a cover that grabbed you first, I bet.
Oh, for sure. I mean, when you're a kid, that's what you see, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially the characters on the cover. So I always had a soft spot for Wolverine and Colossus, especially Colossus, I think.
Sure. That's good stuff. That's good. One of our recent conversations online, you had sent me a copy of Ghost in the Alley. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that project.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is a book that's just been sort of sitting in the back of my head for years and years and years. Like, I just posted recently over on my Twitter at Renerd some sketches that I did from like 5 years ago of this idea I had of a street level crime fighter. And I had this big epic story that I wanted to tell, like maybe 100 pages or 120 pages or something massive. And I just never quite got around to it, because other stuff would come up, getting, other ideas for other books, or, getting invitations to work on books with other people. And, what's funny? I was watching on Netflix, I was watching the movie Extraction with Chris Hemsworth. Mm-hmm. And man, the action in that was just like, it was so great. It was so great and so inspiring. And I was thinking about movies like The Raid, Old Boy, just these really great sort of street level fighting movies. And I thought, this story doesn't have to be 120 pages. I kind of forgot the staple of making comics is it doesn't have to be, a massive epic story for you to tell a story. If something is too big, break it down. So I broke it down to like 12 pages, where it all pretty much takes place in this decrepit apartment. The fight spills over from the apartment into the hallway, and that's kind of it. And I just felt like that was appropriate, if that makes sense. So it's open to, there can be more, or maybe that's it. I'd like to think that's more, but if that's it, then it's still a pretty self-contained story.
Yeah, no, it's really well done, and I think you did a great job on it. I was wondering, though, what would spur you on to make more? Is it just getting the inspiration, or are you looking for feedback from people? How would that work?
It's just the time, between work and family life. It kind of leaves my time at a premium. So I get up at 5 in the morning and I draw and I make comics. Or recently I've gotten back to practicing my figure drawing because I just feel like I could use some practice on that. And I think it's important to sort of always try to practice and never take for granted that, okay, that I'm good enough at that. I don't need to practice that anymore. I think it's important to practice all the time. So I still want to get the practice in. Yeah, I still want to make the comics, but I don't want to make comics that aren't as good as I could make them. So when it comes time for more Ghost in the Alley, I want it to be, as good as it is in my head.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Also noticed on Twitter you were talking about a cover you were suggesting for Crude that you created with Fred Kennedy. And I'm wondering
you remember that story?
Yeah. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that collection and when it might see the light of day.
It's still kind of in the early stages, and Fred Kennedy and I are in talks with some other people who are involved with the project because it was available online through the True Patriot Presents series, which was basically an anthology series of various artists and writers with their own Canadian superheroes, like Dominion Jack and Arrow and Family Dynamic by Jay Joris.
Yeah.
And it was a really fun series. I think everybody had a lot of fun with that. But it's something that I'm really proud of. It may not have gotten much traction. I don't know. I don't know what the feedback has been like for that. But I just started going back through it and looking at this stuff and thinking, I'd really like to put this together again. And so, Fred and I have been chatting about it, and it's like, yeah, okay, how many pages is this? What will we need? Just sort of bouncing around the idea. So I think that's going to happen. And now how it happens, we haven't really settled on yet. We don't know if we're just going to release it online or if we're going to bring it to print or bring it through Kickstarter, any of that. But I think it's, for me, I would love to see it in print personally.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure a lot of people would. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hoping there's some pages in that I'm really, really proud of. There's some characters in there which I think are really, really great. And just the character of Crude herself, she's not your typical superhero at all.
Cool.
I just think she's, I just think she's really fresh, and there's a lot of potential for more. Who knows what the future holds? But the story arc worked really well, and it was really great working with Fred and Jay and Tony White and all those guys to bring this story together and have it out.
Sounds good. So something to look forward to. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm wondering if you have any other books planned for publication in the near future that you can talk about.
Well, I still have another book in my Amazing Hockey Stories series written by Lorna Nicholson. We worked together on the Connor McDavid one, the Haley Wickenheiser, and the PK Subban one. So now we've got a Mitch Marner one coming out. I don't exactly know when that's coming out, just because, the world kind of went to hell in a handbasket for a little while. So I don't know what the status of that one is yet. And hopefully, there's more Amazing Hockey Stories to come. What's really fun about that one is I don't know that much about hockey. So when I get the stories and they're using the language of hockey, it's something for me to learn. And when they're talking about very specific shots, it's kind of cool that I can actually pull up photographs, or I can pull up video reference, and I can see the scene happening in front of me. The only challenge is trying to turn that scene into something that's really visually appealing, not just a camera watching people play. But it is a challenge. The one thing I've always enjoyed is working with writers that challenge me, because I think that's how you grow. I feel it keeps me from becoming too stagnant. And they're really great to work with because they allow me the freedom to sort of express myself, but they also say, okay, no, it has to be this, it has to be this shot, or this is how they have to be holding the stick. Or I think one of the big challenges with the Amazing Hockey Stories, though, is the uniforms, because especially if you're talking Team Canada, because the uniforms change year to year. Is it a home game, away game? What year is it? What season is it? Who's the player? what do they have on the uniforms. It can be really challenging to keep track of that, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, you got to pay attention to detail. That's for sure.
Yeah, because the last thing I want to do is upset, hardcore hockey kids
Sure.
who know their stuff. Like my nephew, he knows his goalie pads, so he knows what goalie has what goalie pads and what they look like. So if I draw goalie pads wrong, he'll call me on it.
Yeah.
And I
Or
was like,
or
yeah,
uh,
that's
what part of Wayne Gretzky's jersey is out of his pants, so to
right,
speak? Yeah,
right,
that's sort of
right.
thing. But
So I
well,
mean,
sweet though, right? That's been a great series, I think so far.
yeah, we what's really cool was the Haley Wickenheiser one was nominated for the Forrester Reading Yellow Cedar Award this year.
Well,
Um,
congrats. That's great.
yeah, thanks. That was really cool. Now we didn't win, but that's okay. It was really cool to get nominated for something like that. But it's kind of a neat series because those books, they're not just hockey comics, they're biographies. So you have a few pages of prose talking about the player's life, and then you have these four different 4-page stories that illustrate just different parts of their career, whether it is when they were kids or when they're playing for Team Canada or you know playing for Montreal or Edmonton, and like they're all Canadian hockey players too. So
Right. Good stuff. So where can people find you online to find out more about the books that you talked about and other future projects?
I'm on Twitter as at Renerd. That's Renerd, and then Instagram Renerd Bishop. And I've recently been playing with TikTok.
Oh,
Not too much with that. It's kind of a big scary world to sort of jump into. There's a lot of like my daughter is fantastic with her TikTok. I don't understand how she does it. So she's my 11-year-old daughter is kind of tutoring me on TikTok. Um,
sure.
yeah, yeah. But I think it's just another available platform to show what you can do. So I'll draw stuff and I'll put it on there. And there's not a lot on there right now, but bit by bit as I do more, there'll be more on there.
Great. Good. Well, Dave, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering if there's something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview.
If you love comics, just keep loving comics. And if there's something you don't like, don't buy it. Buy something you do like, because I'm sure the creators would appreciate it.
Thanks to Dave for the chat. After our interview, Dave reached out to let me know that Amazing Hockey Stories Mitch Marner, with art by Dave, is slated for sale October 6. You can discover more about Dave on Twitter at Renerd, that's Renerd, and on Instagram at RenerdBishop, and online at renerd.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at TrueNorthComics. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2020.